We are now at the very short business meeting section of our Spring Summit. First up is our president, Kurt Smith, who will be giving a review of our activities from the past year and some hints of what we are planning to do in the future.
Thank you very much, Tristan. This is a young organization. I didn't know when I was asked to be president of it in January 2017 that there were such organizations, collaborating organizations which you use collaborate. A number of years ago, I was president of this church, and I tried to get a meeting of the presidents of surrounding churches, and it was like I had stated an obscenity or something. Of course, we couldn't possibly meet and collaborate. But now, I think we can tell today, we get hints of what that collaboration could mean. Collaboration doesn't mean everybody has to do the same thing. It means we're stronger together. It means if we work together, and I could point to any number of ways in which UUs are collaborating not only with each other, but we're now doing interdenominational work. We're collaborating with Nashua on a couple of major projects, and in the work on sanctuary and immigrants, we're collaborating with all kinds of denominations, that some of which probably didn't know we existed before this all started. In a GSOP meeting, I talked to somebody in one of the chapter meetings. He said, "I never thought I'd be sitting in a Unitarian church." So it's clear, I think, that we ought to at least know what we're doing, and that's what this organization is about. We're a 501c3 organization, and we depend on membership. We're going to be getting a treasurer's report that will show you that. There are some 20, depending on what you count, there are some 20 UU congregations in the state, and only 7 of them are actual members of UU Action. Membership, I'll just explain it very simply, pay dues of $2 per church member. And there are some major churches in the state who are not members of our organization. And so obviously this is a pitch for membership. If you're here from one of those churches that's not a member, we hope you can go back and sell it and join us. And I think what you're going to get is conferences like this. In terms of what we've done this year, one thing we've done is to start meeting. We used to just meet all the time in Concord. We decided we'll never get to know the state that way. So we started meeting around the state. We've had meetings in Plymouth and Milford. The meeting in Milford was particularly outstanding because we met with a lot of the activists in the church from organizations that we didn't even know existed. And the meeting in Plymouth was equally outstanding. One major thing we did this year was to sponsor the Bail Fund. You heard Gershon O'Neill on the Bail Fund. I feel very strongly that UU Action should not just be a bureaucracy, it should actually do something. And what we're doing is the Bail Fund. And I won't repeat some of the things that Lydia said, but I think it's very important. And you're going to get introduced to a couple of people in a minute. But just let me say, I want to thank the board that I've got, every one of whom contributed to this conference. I really appreciate that. I think the conference was a success, and we can only go up from here. Some of you came to our event in the fall, Story Slam, which was at Concord UU. It was well attended, a lot of fun, and we heard some fantastic stories. Probably, though, this year will be remembered as the year in which, through the UU funding program, we have now a paid director. And this, in fact, is his first day on the job. And if he can do this on the first day, imagine what he's going to do 6 months or a year from now. And I refer to Tristan. I really think he needs a round of applause for having put together and overseeing this. Obviously, we want to get known around the state. We want to work with other UUs. We want to help other UUs. One of the reasons to join us is that it gives us money so that we can contribute to the projects that you do. And we already have, in some ways, begun to do that contribution. The other person I need to introduce is Paul Phillips, who's now on our board. But again, now that we've got an executive director, I don't think there's any telling what we're going to be able to do. So I want to keep this short, and we can move on to our treasurer, Emily Bird.
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is tell you that we have these pamphlets available which tell about UU Action New Hampshire and give our website. And if you wish to be a donor, the best thing that you could possibly do is be a sustaining member, which you can do best through your bank account and not your credit card. I started with my credit card and realized I was paying 28 cents extra every month for one thing, and then the company that collects our credit card information was taking another 45 cents every time I donated. But when it came straight out of my bank account, it all went to UU Action New Hampshire. So I'm going to leave these on the table up there. Take a few back to your church, take one for yourself, and become a member. And since the bail fund is under us, but technically separate, I have put their information on the back. I didn't ask them for a budget for next year. They're pretty much an independent organization, but we are responsible fiscally for them should they incur debts that they can't pay. So it behooves us to keep track of where they're at. So far, they're doing fine. You will make a note. I didn't put the balance that they have, which is down to about $900 in their checking account, but that's because we've loaned $5,500 to the UCC bond fund, which they say they intend to pay back as we move more, as the bail fund moves more into bail and bonding. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but we'll see as we go forward. Mostly I'm responsible for the other side of the page, and I thought it would be helpful to give last year's proposed budget. So the first column that says 18 through 19 is what we voted on at our summit last year as a budget. And you'll notice there are 2 asterisks in that column, and we have spent nothing so far on payroll. But as you just learned, we now have a part-time executive director. And so for May and June, it will come out of that budget there. The next column is what we have spent so far this fiscal year since July 1 and gotten in. Yeah, the top part is what we've received. And you can notice that $5,000 grant there. If we raise $5,000 more this year, we will get an additional $5,000 from UUA. And that's from church memberships, from individual members. And 1993 was from our very successful Story Slam in November, and we are planning another one for next year. If you missed it, don't miss the next one. It was great. And then expenses came down so far, without the payroll, to less than we expected. You'll notice the post office box is more, and that was because I found that the post office box rates were going up, but if I paid for a whole year all at once, I got the lower rate for the whole year. So that's what I did. So that's actually a year and a half's worth of post office box rental. You'll notice a big increase in our 1920 budget for payroll because we now have the executive director. I also pushed up church donations some. I have applied for a grant from the Downing Trust as well, to be a minister at large, and my plan, should I be accepted if I get the grant, is to go to either, I gave them a choice, I can either do 10 a year for 2 years or try and get 20 all in 1 year, UU churches with a service about UU Action New Hampshire and what we're doing and asking people to please join and support us. So I'm hoping that our individual gifts will go up significantly. We don't know yet if we're going to get that grant matched, so I couldn't put that in, which leaves this funny little line, other fundraisers, $9,000. So we will be coming up with some other fundraiser during the year, hopefully. But that's basically that's the current shortfall for next year's budget. It could be filled with grants, it could be filled with even more individual or church gifts than I have put down here. But we need to make that up to keep our director. Otherwise, things are pretty straightforward. Are there questions? Yes?
Emily, could you just explain again what it would take to get that $5,000 grant for this coming year?
We need to raise $5,000 ourselves, either through church membership, individual gifts, fundraisers, but we have to raise $5,000 and show UUA that we have raised $5,000, and then they will give us another $5,000.
One of the things we're thinking about is the Faith of Life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to get some video put on Faith of Life.
Okay, if you didn't hear Judith, one of the things we've talked about is doing a Faithified drive, which Curtis has done a couple of times for different things
Yeah.
successfully.
Very confident.
Pretty confident we can get another Faith Life grant. Questions? You know, I could go on and on about the importance of UUs doing this, and the fact that UUs are really, we're playing catch up. If you're involved in social action in New Hampshire, you'll realize that other denominations have been doing this for a long time. And so we're, in a sense, learning from them, and I could have said much more on collaborations than I did. For example, I mean, I'll just use my own case. I'm secretary of the NAACP. I'm on the board of GSOP. I'm chair of the board of New Hampshire Peace Action. I say all that not to brag. It's just that there's a lot that's going on that we UUs have to learn from. We haven't historically been a very socially active denomination. But again, I could give you a long song and dance about how our nation and our world are, I would argue, in more peril than they've ever been. And the need to be socially active is more urgent than it has ever been. In fact, the situation with climate change and the threat of nuclear war alone place the whole human race in peril. So this is I know I'm talking to the choir here because you folks are active, but I'm just saying it's important that we work together. It's important that we build this organization. And we're only at the very beginning of doing that.
One group that's been mentioned several times today is Voices of Faith,
Yeah.
which is an interfaith group that witnesses at the State House on specific bills. Allison and I are now, the UUs are now part of the board of the New Hampshire Council of Churches, which are 10 liberal denominations that are working on this together, and that at this point their push is political activism.
And I should mention again, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that once again that we are a level 1 sanctuary church here. We're very active in the sanctuary movement and the immigrant solidarity, and we're not alone. You know, we have many partners. Some of you are sitting out there. Where if there's a silver lining to this horrible situation we're in, it's that for the first time we're working together, and that we can do much more. Liz.
You
just mentioned this happens to be a sanctuary church. Are you planning to give a tour of the sanctuary bedroom?
We can do that. We can show you what the result of our handiwork. We do have those of you who've been in the women's room have seen part of it already. You've seen the shower in there. But we also have a furnished room that we're ready to receive something sanctuary. And I have a feeling that Liz specializes in this. We're more than happy to show you that room. Other questions?